welcome back to Tuesdays 10. This is episode 5, Communication and Approach.
Communication and approach. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Absolutely. Did you want to start off? Or you want me to start off?
Man, just right off the jump, I want to go ahead and say, man, communication and approach, what I've come to learn in the years, one with the disclaimer, I was not brought up in a home of gentleness, is my communicating approach with her. I had to learn that, a pointed conversation works best rather than saying, hey, if there's a mistake that was made, instead of just getting mad and saying, you know what, you did this and like blah, 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 and get mad real quick and trying to correct it right then and there. It always comes off as bantering to her. It does not come off as somebody trying to have patience or trying to understand her. What works better with her is if I say, hey, I got a point of conversation and we got to talk about this later. And even when I do that, my approach has got to be on point. The approach has to be, soft and gentle. Like I said, once again, gentleness is not something that I was raised with. It's something that I had to learn as the years went on. Mm-hmm. Because I was brought up with, 4 boys, where there's 4 of us total. And my dad, my mother was the only woman in my life, ever present all the time that I had a lot of, raising around. Other than some of my aunts I did have exposure to, but the primary base was just, my mom was the main woman that was in our households coming up. Other than that, it was my brothers and it was my dad, And so gentleness was not a thing. We got a lot of Johnny on the spot corrections and communication. So like when I messed up, it's like, man, you can't do that. And then sometimes I would get a short correction and sometimes I'll get a sermon. However, it didn't sound like burn. All I know is I needed to correct whatever behavior or whatever I was doing that was wrong, to get things better. And that's not how it works well in marriages. It doesn't work well like that with life. I had to learn that my approach with her had to be gentle, and she doesn't do the Johnny on the spot fixes. She's not going to fix it right there. She's not going to listen to you banter and talk, and do all that. It's best with me, with her, to say, hey, can we have a conversation about this later, baby? Mm-hmm. And later on around this time. And then literally set an alarm on your phone or a point of time to talk about an issue, especially if it's something that's, that's going to be bothering you,
Yeah, it's always easier when it's not the heat of the moment, and then you get to think about things and actually, not stew in it, because that sounds bad, but more or less just think about the right and the wrong of it, not who's right and who's wrong, but what's the what's the best way to go about it, and where could I have done better, or how do I want to communicate it better? Because if you do it in the heat of the moment, oftentimes you react instead of respond, and I really don't like that. And I know that if I'm not thinking about it, there are times where I'm so upset that I just don't really think about it, and I'm just reacting the whole time. It's a giant reaction rather than responding with love and respect, and actually thinking logically about it. Because I got talks from my father, and I also got a lot of other crazy mess from my mother and other family members that was just a whole lot of anger. So for me, it's easier for me to sit, think, and be more logical about it. Mm-hmm. I don't respond well to the immediate yelling or immediate, oh my God, why did you do this wrong? It doesn't work that way for me, because then it kind of just brings me back to like my childhood, which can actually get in the middle of your marriage if you don't find healing. And that's something that I'm constantly working on, and I feel like a lot of people in their marriages are still working on some things that they went through when they were younger too. And that's also an important thing about communication and approach is recognizing those things, being able to communicate with your spouse about those things, and being able to approach them in a manner that they understand and that they respond well to, rather than something that's going to make them feel like, oh, well, you're not even listening, or I'm not able to get my point across or communicate with you because you aren't sensitive to what I've been through. That kind of thing.
Yeah, communication for one, it's loving.
Yeah.
Knowing how to communicate with your spouse is loving. It's not corny.
Mm-mm.
It's something that everybody should learn how to do. Because first off, this thing is forever. Marriage is supposed to be till death do us part. And your spouse, what you have to understand, those triggers and those landmines that you step on, whether it be through speech or things that you do, they ain't going anywhere. But your approach can make them better. And how you approach them things, and we talk about them things the correct way, it's everything. And the timing is everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the first things on my list was timing. There is a time for everything. And sometimes, like we were saying, the heat of the moment definitely isn't it. Sometimes you do need to step back and take a wholehearted look at it. And like we've mentioned before in some of our videos is you need to really think about what your spouse's intentions are. Did your spouse really wake up and say, hey, I really want to upset you today. I'd really like to hurt your feelings. No. That's not really what happens. I don't think any relationship is really like that, unless you're in a really toxic one, which you usually know you are, and you probably won't even have to go into detail about that. But.
Yeah. Like she said, nobody just wakes up with ill intention and malice in their relationships. Like most people, like I said this in a video I posted earlier, you know, if somebody's bringing a talk and saying we need to have a talk to you, it's not to bring up a problem, it's to solve one. It's not to make problems, it's to solve a problem. And it usually is a cry for help. Not in that dramatic sense, but it's something saying, hey, I need you to help me mitigate this. We need to figure out a better way to go about this or figure out an understanding. But however, it's never to create a problem or to keep a problem ongoing, it's to solve one. And that's usually the intention of your spouse when they say, hey, we need to talk about something. Another thing is just to remember that whoever initiates the conversation or says that they have to speak with you, there's two roles that has to be played. And it doesn't matter who starts it. One of you has to be the open hand and an open book and be receptive to what's being said. Make sure that you're listening to help and not to harm and not to defend. Don't come there trying to defend everything they're telling you. They're not there to attack you. They're there to enlighten you about something or bring something more to your attention so we can go about it a different way or talk about it or, you know, or just go about it in general a different way. Mm-hmm. It's not to harm you. It's more so to help her or to help yourself sometimes or vice versa.
Absolutely. And your approach the reason that the approach is important is because you could be completely right in what you're coming to your spouse about and be completely wrong in how you approach it. You could be completely right about how they did something that they knew was beyond your boundaries, but be completely wrong because you're yelling, hollering, or coming at, you know, you did this and you did that, blah, 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 blah. But really you should be coming at your spouse saying, hey, when you did this or when this happened, it made me feel this way. Not, oh, you're a horrible person, you did this, you made me feel this way. It's not an attack, like he said. You don't want to attack your spouse. So on the same end of the person who needs to listen, the person who's approaching you to talk to you needs to come at you in a meek and humble manner. They need to come at you not in an attacking manner, but in a loving, hey, this is where I'm really bothered and I would really appreciate it if you helped me in this department, or we need to make this change if we can, you know, is there any way we can come to a compromise? Something like that.
Like a pointed conversation. Sometimes my approach is going to be wrong with her if she did make the mistake or step on one of my landmines and I just start going off on her. That's, you know, my approach is going to be wrong because she didn't come up in a household like mine, you know, in the same way. She wasn't raised the same way. You know, like I can't just, you know, belittle her and, you know, dog her and stuff. I have to say, you know what? Be like Jesus. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. I gotta shelf that for a little bit. I gotta put it up, and I gotta wait for the right approach in the right way. And then I gotta go and talk to her. Whether it's sometimes it's through a text message, or sometimes it's even after a nice meal. You go out and you have something nice to eat, and then you talk about it. You'd be surprised how open your wife is to speak to you after a good meal. And I pulled that a couple times, but your approach is everything, and it's very biblical. Your approach needs to be right.
And what was I gonna say? Another important part about approach, which goes in completely in line with everything we've already been saying, is that you don't want to approach them in a way that you know works for you. Or I guess we basically already said that. Not in a way that works for you. You have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have to get uncomfortable and get out of your comfort zone and your bubble to approach them the way that you know works for them, which we kind of already said, but I guess I needed to rephrase it a little.
Yeah.
It's really difficult for me sometimes because I keep wanting to approach him in a way that works for me rather than a way that works for him. And then that makes him not as receptive. Even if he comes at it from a point of view where he knows that that's what I'm doing and that I mean well by it, it's hard for him to receive because it's not a way that works for him. And vice versa. Same thing for me.
Yeah. So we got a couple. Go ahead.
Oh, you were introducing what I was about to say.
Oh, go for it. Oh, go ahead.
We have a couple of key points.
Go ahead, say it.
Okay, so we already went over timing. Pay attention was something that we kind of already went over, and we've gone over probably more than one video now because it is important. But I wanted to kind of split it into two different categories of pay attention. Pay attention to how your spouse reacts and what works for them, and pay attention to when your spouse is communicating to you how they feel and what's bothering them, that you're truly listening and trying to find solutions. Again, just to reinstate or restate what he said, is that stop feeling attacked and stop trying to defend yourself the whole time. You need to actually listen. Oh wow, I didn't even know they felt that way, or yeah, I kind of knew they felt that way, but I didn't really see it from that point of view, and actually try to understand rather than thinking the whole time they're talking about how to defend yourself. That is a huge issue. You don't want to sit there and think, oh my gosh, I'm being attacked. I mean, that's probably one of the main things in marriage, is people always feel attacked just because somebody's approaching them with something that they were uncomfortable with. Mm-hmm. And it's not really at you, it's more or less of, hey, we need to communicate so that we can get along better. This is kind of a boundary of mine, and I'm hoping to work through it. And another way to ensure that you're doing that is to be water. And you've heard us mention it over and over and over again. Be water, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry, and always try to de-escalate. That's really what being water means. Being water means being soft, being kind.
Gentleness, man. Gentleness, fellas. Gentleness. Sometimes it's ladies too. I mean, I've seen some ladies go off on their man and in front of me, and I feel uncomfortable every time.
It's wild.
It's wild to me. I mean, it blows my mind, but it happens. But gentleness is the first thing, especially with men. Our approach is like, you're never gonna get nowhere with your man trying to banter at him, talk about blah blah blah. That's not gonna work. I promise you. That man.
He stopped listening a long time ago.
And he's learned to put himself somewhere else while you're doing that. And any man that I know personally that goes through that I talk to, they literally put themselves somewhere else. They just like, I don't care. Or they be thinking about somewhere else. They have a place that they go to. Come with me and you'll be in the world of pure imagination. That's where they go. They go off in the la-la land. But it just, all that bantering, at the end of the day, you're like, and I hate to say it sometimes, unless he's already upset, most of the times you're like a chihuahua. I mean, it's like some people learn how to block that out, but it's just like, just don't think that you're actually intimidating that man into doing what you want him to do. It's not working. If anything, you're irritating him to the max, and it just doesn't work that way. That's just not how we're wired. We're not wired to take a bunch of blah blah. Doesn't work.
There's very few women that can actually imitate a man.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's not to sound in a sexist manner. It's just that sometimes we look like cute little chihuahuas that are just barking.
And I'm sorry if I sounded sexist, but
no,
I mean,
you don't.
I don't know. This is. I guess that's more so my perspective when I see that dynamic, because sometimes it is the woman just lashing out every time on their man, and I've seen.
I have seen so many relationships where the man is the extremely calm one, and the woman is just a crazy wild woman. It kind of reminds me, and this might hit a lot of nerves.
Don't go personal, please.
No.
All right, yeah, don't.
You're goofy.
I'm sorry.
You made me start forgetting.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize.
It's okay.
And it reminds me.
It reminds me of, gosh, I forgot. I lost it. Aww. It's okay. It's not your fault. Don't worry about it. anyhow, I guess to move on to one of my next points, and it's going to sound repetitive sometimes because it's actually really important. Be meek, humble, and not prideful. Again, when you're offended or when somebody's telling you they're offended, it's sometimes really hard to be humble and not prideful. Even if you know that you're right in a situation, you shouldn't be prideful. You should still try to listen to them and give their understanding, and it's okay to respectfully disagree. You're not always going to agree on everything. We're not ever saying, oh, you have to agree on everything, that by doing all of this, you're going to start agreeing with each other on everything. You do need to be somewhat on the same page, but you're not going to agree on every little detail of everything. And then my last little thing here was do the hard thing. I say do the hard thing because communication is completely missing in a lot of relationships. And communication is, I know it sounds funny, communication is key. It's not, more or less God is the key, but communication is extremely important in a relationship. I have no idea how anybody can be in a relationship without communication. What's the point of getting married if you're not going to communicate with each other on a proper level? You can't just sit around and hold everything in. You have to talk about it. You have to do the uncomfortable, hard thing, because uncomfortable, difficult things are the things that get you through your adversities, like we were talking about before. You can't move past a problem without doing something about it.
Yep. And number one thing is to make sure, when we keep saying, say, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Anger has to be the main thing highlighted. Anger has to be dealt with. If it's in the room, you need to get it out of the room. Anger is like a flat tire on a car. Before that car moves, you got to fix that tire first. Anger is that flat tire. It's the same thing in communication and timing. You can't communicate effectively while you are angry. And if you are angry, it is not the time to communicate. It's also a good direction to let you know that it is not time for you to communicate. If you are angry, cut it off. Fix that tire first, then come back, think about it, pray, meditate, do whatever you want to do, but then get that right. And then sometimes a pointed communication is the best thing. It works well for me and her. For me to her. Now, she could still tell me some stuff on the spot and I'll be receptive. But the timing, and also you got to remember the role, like who is bringing up the conversation in the appointment. At that time, if she's bringing up the conversation for me, then I have to have an open hand. I have to have two hands open heart, and open head. I need to listen to help, not defend myself, and listen sometimes even objectively or sometimes personally, because sometimes the things, it could be something that you're doing, but in the same sense, what is the intention? What is the intention of it? The intent. Is it mean to help or harm the relationship? It's never meant to harm the relationship. Most things any spouse brings to the other spouse is something to help the relationship.
Even if they sound like they're coming at it from a very offended point of view, where they're pretty upset, it's almost always because they're hurt and they want to fix it and they don't want to have that problem in their relationship. Exactly. Even if they're coming at you the wrong way, it's usually out of pain or being upset about something that they felt wrong about.
Okay. And so with that being said, just remember, timing, who appointed the conversation, your role in that time, like who's doing it. Your attitude has to be in check. Attitude has to be in check. Anger cannot be in the room. If you're getting angry, if y'all need to get a safe word or do something, but however, you need to intentionally communicate, and your approach is everything.
And don't let the sun go down in your anger. Don't go to bed angry.
Don't go to bed angry. Resolve those issues. It's always worth it. Your marriage is forever. Your job is not going to be forever. Your engagement or the party that you're at is not going to be forever.
And not talking to each other for a week is not the answer to all your problems in your marriage.
Exactly. That's not the issue. Withholding sex is not the answer to that marriage. Doing that stuff is not the answer. The answer is what's the big pink elephant in the room. If you're not talking, then you probably need to talk, and y'all need to calmly talk.
The uncomfortable thing.
And then somebody has to be brave and step up and point the conversation. However, whoever decides to be brave, the other party need to recognize that they're being brave, and then the other person should be receptive to what is being said. Be an open book. Not meaning that you do not get to express your opinions or side, but Give it some more time. Timing is everything. Appoint your own conversation. Speak on those things. There's nothing wrong with writing stuff down. Put it in your phone. Everybody's phone now has a note section where you could take notes. Anything where you could jot stuff down. Put that stuff down in your phone. Speak on it with your spouse. Make it a point of it. Pray over it, then speak about it. But trust me, doing these things with this type of intentionality is a little process to the piece.
Ooh, I just thought of something.
No.
I didn't even write it in my key points, but I was thinking, stop waiting on your spouse to do the right thing. You don't have to wait on your spouse to do the right thing. You don't have to wait on the other person to be the bigger person. That's another part of being prideful. Step up to the plate. We all have to lead by example at some point. Stop waiting on the other person to do right and just do right on your own. When you're doing everything that you can to do right, you're gonna automatically lead by example, and you're gonna set that narrative for your marriage. Is that the right word? Narrative?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works.
My second vocabulary. But anyhow, you're just gonna set that standard, I guess, for your marriage. That hey, I'm gonna choose to step up to the plate because I'm fighting for my marriage, and this is what's right, and we need to do what's right. We don't need to worry about who's right.
Exactly. Do what's right. Don't worry about who's right. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Ecclesiastes. And it's funny that you want to talk about it because we're talking about timing and approach and communication and things of that sort. And just in things in general for a marriage, man. You have to remember that in the first essence is that just like life and just like, Jesus Christ and the church, marriage is always parallel to salvation in life. You have to remember that. It's for us till death do us part. So I'm going to read Ecclesiastes. And instead of just applying it to everyday life, I want you to think about it in a marital aspect, in each line that I read from Ecclesiastes. It's going to be Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. So think about marriage in every line and how it can be applicable to that. Every line that I read. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. Let me stop there. A time to kill and a time to heal. So you have to think about that. There are certain things that you should be killing off in your marriage. Certain things that don't fit.
Absolutely.
Stuff that you were doing that you were single. It's time to kill all that.
Oh, yeah.
It's time to kill all that. It doesn't belong in your house.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. So them things that you're doing, that you were doing when you were single, it's time for it to go. It don't belong in your household. If it does not promote y'all's union, then get away from it. Kill it, if anything like that. A time to heal. Time to heal, there's a lot of things to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to gain and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. Think about them times when it's angry, when you're getting heated. Think about those times. When should we, is it time to get,
It's time to be quiet, or is there time to speak up?
A time to love and a time to hate. A time to hate? What, in my marriage? Yeah. You know what you should hate? Anything that comes in between y'all. As far as, especially of sinful nature. Anything that promotes y'all splitting. It's a time, there's some things that you should mutually hate in your marriage,
Mm-hmm.
And it should be anything that doesn't promote y'all being together.
Exactly.
Anything that the enemy promotes to tear y'all apart, those are the things that you should be hating. So yeah, not hate each other. Because remember, marriage is not battle of the sexes.
No, it's not.
Marriage is working together, and it's working hard at it daily.
I was laughing at a time to keep and a time to throw away.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to bring things home.
And I tend to be the one to throw them away.
I'm working on it. I brought some things home today, and I'm also throwing away other things. I'm basically replacing it with with better things, which is also what you should be doing in your marriage.
And the last one, a time of war and a time of peace. First thing I think about is when I hear that, choose your battles.
Yeah.
Pick your battles. Time of war and a time for peace.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles.
That's an important one. You don't need to fight over every single tiny, stupid little thing. There's a lot of relationships that are like that. They're constantly arguing. They fight over every tiny thing.
Yeah, exactly.
We were there once.
Yeah.
We've been together a very long time. We were there once. We were also young once. I guess we're still kind of young to some people, but we're a lot older than we were when we got together.
We got mileage, man. It's not about the year of the car. It's about the mileage, bro.
We didn't start this way.
Yeah, sure did not. Yeah, trust me, I did a lot of things. I tried to go places on all 4 flat tires with my Anchor. You know, all 4 of my tires were flat. I still tried to drive the car. I've been there. I've done it wrong plenty of times. I should have had a train. I thought it was a train.
You both.
Thought the rail was like a train. If you put it on the train track, it moved. You know, that's what. All right. I'm gonna rest. I don't want to get too off track. Ephesians 5:22 through 33. Now, under a holy union. Now, first off, let me just say it's not some primitive sexist gender roles, but it's more so encouraging a practice that brings peace, godly peace. Don't think of it as something that's just mundane, primitive, and old and outdated. It's really telling people, first of all, it's challenging the man. And what I really think it's like, because first of all, you got to be like Jesus. And I like, what up? Oh, hold up now. And the first thing you want to do is say, nah, I can't be that. You know, it's a big responsibility, but the main thing it's saying is one big word. It begins with an S. Is that if it don't start with you serving, because Jesus came, you have to understand where Ephesians 5:22 come from. It's always about serving. You have to think about what Jesus' role was when he came down to earth. Mm-hmm. Did he come to be an oppressive, overbearing, overruling king? Hyper masculine male? No. He came and he served his people. He came and served and loved. It pretty much, it's very, black and white for how you should be towards your woman and towards your wife even, for the one that you're creating that union for.
I mean, Jesus even cleaned feet. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, he washed his disciples' feet, did everything. He's like, you talk about, Christ, the man's supposed to love the wife as Christ loved the church.
Jesus did the hard thing over and over.
Over and over and over. And it also, one thing, it began with him. He had to come down and he had to do it. So that's 2 things that this scripture is going over. It's not something to promote women to submit. It ain't got nothing to do with that. But what it is encouraging a godly formula that can bring peace. And this is what I came up with. His service activates her submission. Her submission encourages his service. Think about that. His service activates her submission. Her submission encourages his service.